Hey, my friends, welcome back to another episode of the Dental Marketing Secrets Podcast, episode number 77, which is pretty cool. So excited to have you here with us. If this is your first time, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for tuning in. If this is not your first time, welcome back. And I'm quite pleased, actually, that you are coming back and that I haven't scared you off. No. No, but this is really fun for me to do. I love sharing things that have helped me and my clients gain more traction as far as marketing goes. Things that help move the needle, and so that you can grow your practice, serve more patients, and ultimately leave a greater legacy in your community and in your family and in the families that you reach via your practice. I just think it's so cool to be able to build something that affects so many people. And I hope that this podcast can be a resource for you moving forward, that you can come and glean some great information and get farther along because you've listened to an episode or heard one of our guests or anything like that. So excited to have you with us today. It is summer and it's a few days before school starts, and I've got 4 girls and they are all in school right now. So we've got elementary, 2 in elementary, 1 in middle school, and 1 starting high school, which is kind of bonkers to think about, really. I feel like I'm still in high school sometimes, most times, and my wife probably does too. But it is really cool, really exciting, and really it like messes with your mind, you know. But I am very pleased to see them continue their education and all that. They just my wife took the girls to the lake today, so they were out paddleboarding and swimming and doing some fun stuff up there while I was at my desk. No, just kidding. But I'm glad that they took advantage. It's a great day for that. So summer's been great, but it's always fun to kind of get back into the routine, the schedule of the school year. So excited to see what it brings, especially for our oldest, as she ventures into unknown territory at the high school. So that'd be fun. So today I have a rather shorter episode today, but I wanted to focus on Google reviews and specifically how to get more Google reviews for your practice. This inevitably is something that comes up as I'm talking to practices and evaluating, their position in the marketplace and what could be improved. And it makes sense, right? We all want more Google reviews because we understand the importance of those reviews. From there's this psychological there's this psychological aspect of it where it's this social proof, where we see other patients, we see all these other people that have gone to the practice. If we're evaluating side by side 2 practices that we're looking at, say we moved into the area recently, we don't know anyone, and we're just looking them up, just saying, dentist near me or dentist in Salt Lake City, Utah, and we see the 2 side by side, and one has 400 plus reviews with a 4.8 star rating, and the other one has maybe 6 reviews. And even if it's the same rating, we'd probably give a little bit more credibility to the one where hundreds of people have gone there and left a review, right? I mean, to us, that's a good sign that there's a lot of people that trust this business, and if there's that many that have gone and are willing to leave a review, there's probably a good 5, 6, 7, maybe 10 times more that have actually gone to that practice. And that's kind of how we operate nowadays. We lend a lot of credence to what other people are saying about the practice. And that's what's cool. I mean, there's an old saying, and I can't remember it word for word, but the gist is what someone else says about you is infinitely more important than what you say about you, right? And that's kind of what we're talking about with reviews and why they're so important. It's because it's this testimonial of sorts that, hey, I can vouch for this practice, that I've been there myself. I've gone through I've had an appointment. I've worked with the staff. I've had treatment, and this is how I feel. And that's pretty powerful, especially when we're talking about the dental industry. It's one thing if it's a fast food place or something like that, right? I mean, we went to, I can't even remember what it's called now. It's a fairly newer place where we are. And now I'm totally blanking on it. It's a chicken new chicken place, whatever. But it was, and I thought it was okay. Like it had a lot of fanfare, and I was like, meh, it was okay, right? So it's one thing to like leave a review on a place like that, and then, but it's I think it's a lot different. It's a lot bigger deal to leave a review for something that is much more invasive. It's much more personal, even private and vulnerable, like a dental practice, where literally you have someone's hands in your mouth, right? I mean, it's not a comfortable experience. And so to see that, I think people, for the most part, recognize that that's a big deal, right? And so there's the social credibility aspect of it, but there's also this trust aspect as well, and I think that's an important thing to highlight, is that as people are coming, that's what they need, right? They need to be, actually in our last episode with Dr. Spencer, he was talking about this relationship between, or this diagram, right? Where you have trust and awareness, that you need both of those for someone to feel comfortable accepting treatment. They have to be, one, aware of their problem, and two, they have to have that trust in order for them to move forward with the treatment. And I feel that's applicable here to what we're talking about. Is they're considering your practice, they have to have some sort of trust. And if they haven't had an experience with you before to establish that trust, a lot of times they can borrow that from Google reviews, or the referral or a reference from someone who's been there themselves. So that's what's neat about that, is the trust can then come from these Google reviews and help solidify the credibility of your practice. So that's one thing. But then there's that psychological, there's the social aspect of it. But then there's also a very important aspect and it's an SEO aspect, a search engine optimization aspect, where Google will actually pull in those reviews. I mean, those reviews, I shouldn't say it that way, but they have an influence over how high you rank on the map, for example. So if I going back to my dentist near me or dentist Salt Lake City, Utah, it's going to show a map section, right? That's going to have little pinpoints showing where those locations are. And to get listed on the map section, your Google reviews play a factor in that. And they look at your reviews, they look at the number, they look at the quality, they look at the recency of those reviews, as well as in the local pack. And so there's the listings right there that are written out, and that's the local pack as well in that same search. So you've got the map, you've got the local pack, and then you've got your organic results. And the local pack and the map are heavily influenced by your Google reviews. And like I mentioned before, it's not just your rating. So if you have a 5-star rating, that's great, but you only have 2 reviews, that's not as helpful, right? Because Google takes into account the overall rating, important, the number of reviews, right? The quantity of reviews. So if you have 2 versus 200, and then the recency of your reviews. So they want to see, are these reviews, ideally they want to see those coming in consistently, right? Instead of just a one time a year, big, huge, massive spike, and then it's silent for 12 more months, and then another spike, right? They want to see consistent reviews coming. That's ideal, right? That's going to be the ideal. It's not always going to work that way, right? You can't force someone to leave a review, clearly. Although we have tried. No, I'm just kidding. But that goes into it, and that's interesting too. You think about it, because that's really that's where the algorithm comes into play, because they want to see, okay, and what it's telling them, what those signals are to Google, is that if they're generating a lot of reviews, that signals to Google that it's a good user experience. Like, people are excited about this. You're trending, basically. You're just like, oh man, this practice is trending. They're getting 10 new reviews each month. And so when someone types in dentist near me, they're much more likely to put that practice in the search results, because they're trending. They're hot, right? I mean, they want to give good results for the user. That's their whole goal, And so that's one way to look at it. And so it's important to, yes, your quality, your overall rating score is important. Yes, it's important to have a lot of number, but it's also a high number of reviews. But it's also as important to not space those out, but just have, recency on your side to keep getting reviews and not just stay at a standstill. Okay. So those are some things, some little background, a little context there on Google reviews and the importance of those. So let's dive into how to get more reviews, right? And if I were to just say it in 3 letters, it would be ASK. And who was it? It was Mark, Chicken Soup for the Soul guy, Mark. I love this guy too, and I forget like his name, but he wrote, ASK. He used to say ASK to GET, ASK to GET, ask to get, right? And that's kind of what it is. I'm not going to dive into there's a lot of tools that can help automate this process so that you're, as soon as an appointment finishes, for example, they get a text or they get an email that asks them for a review. Those are all great, and they can definitely help bump up your number of reviews. But I wanted to focus this on your internal processes. Okay, so baking this into part of who you are as a practice is just this natural extension to ask them and invite them to leave a Google review, and educate them on how important that is to you, right? So that's kind of the angle I'm taking on this particular episode. So let's talk about that. So again, the biggest thing is just to ask. So just asking patients for a review. It sounds so simple. I say that and I'm like, that's all I need to say. Okay. No, but it is just that important. Sometimes we make it in our heads. It becomes this big monstrous obstacle. And it's this big hairy monster that we're trying to like overcome mentally. Oh, are they going to feel weird? Am I going to feel weird? Is this just going to be awkward? When in reality, it's just a question. It doesn't need to be awkward. It can just be an extension of who you are or a part of your process. It's like, do you want fries with that? Like you say that so many times and it becomes, you become emotionally detached to the outcome, right? And it reminds me of, I served a 2-year service mission for my church in Italy, and we knock doors and we talk to people on the street about Jesus. We were those missionaries with tags and stuff, and we just try to talk to everyone. But you just get told no a lot, right? And at first you're just trying to work up the courage to go talk to someone that you don't know. You're 19 years old and don't really know what's going on in the world. But you're excited to be there, and it can be very hard at first because you're like, oh man, you feel like it's a personal rejection. But the reality is it's not. They're just maybe not interested. And after several months of this, obviously, and 2 years of this, it made it a lot easier to recognize that it's just a question, and it doesn't mean that they don't like you or love you or respect you or anything like that. They just might not want to leave a review or whatever the case may be. So don't be so emotionally tied to the outcome. Okay, that's kind of number one is just be okay with whatever the response is. Don't make a big deal. If it's not, then cool. We still love you. We're still going to treat you the same way, right? But another thing to remember is that there is a sweet spot for asking reviews. How do you find that sweet spot? And what I've noticed is that it's right after the moment that you've delivered something of value, or they've maybe mentioned something that really stands out. That they go out. They say something that's unprompted, like, "Man, I feel so much better," or "Wow, that was a lot easier than I thought. I didn't even feel that shot." Something like that. That's that's unsolicited. That's a perfect time to be like, oh, that is so cool. I'm glad you said that. Hey, and then you could bring that up like towards, obviously not during treatment, but down the road, like, when you said that thing, that really stood out to me. I know there's a lot of people that still, they want to come to the dentist, but they're afraid that the shots are going to hurt, or they're afraid it's going to be too uncomfortable. Would you be cool and just leave a quick Google review? You just tap this, scan this QR code and even, just write a sentence or two. Take like 30 seconds. That would be such a big help. And it doesn't have to be something very long or anything like that. It could be as simple as that, and you can, if it helps to write out a script, then great, until you get that script down, then cool. And you can just make it your own words. Something as easy as that, but it's tying it back into those sweet spots, those highlights, those moments where you delivered that value for them, where it made a difference. So that's the other thing. You want to ask, but you also want to look for those sweet spots And always, like I mentioned before, don't be tied emotionally to the outcome. And then there are a lot of very simple but easy ways to increase the number of reviews you get. And that's just by reducing the friction to leave the review. And what I mean by that is that make it easy for them to find it, just to leave a review. And so I mentioned a QR code. That's a very, very easy way. Just print out an 8.5 by 11 flyer and get one of those acrylic plastic holders, put them in at the front desk, maybe put them in the ops if you have space, and just say, hey, got a minute, got 30 seconds, leave a quick Google review for us. Scan this code, leave a quick Google review. That makes it's a huge help for us. And emphasize that they're helping you out. I think people love to help when they can, and it makes them feel good, right? It makes you feel good. It makes me feel good when I help. And so that's a good way to provide some context. And if you have more time, you can explain what it does. Just like I mentioned in that example, where there's a lot of people that are still afraid to go to the dentist because they've had a bad experience in the past. They have all this anxiety built up from when they went and they just weren't very good. This helps us to find those people that desperately need the treatment but are scared to come in. Just something like that. If you want to provide a little bit of education, a little bit of context for them. And I found that works really well. But you can do these. It's very easy to create a QR code. You just type in QR code creator in Google, and you'll get a dozen, probably like a couple hundred of those. You can click on one, you type in the URL, and you can actually find the Google in your Google business profile. There's a place on there. If you're in the admin section, and it's easy to get into the admin section too. If you're logged into the Gmail account that's associated with your profile, it automatically does it. And then you just tap on, I think it's just ask for reviews. It's something like that. I don't have it pulled up right in front of me, so I don't know exactly what the words are. But then it just gives you a link. And then you can take that link, post it into a QR code creator, and then it spits out a QR code that you can download and put on a flyer. Or I love to also create little kind of business cards with a QR code on the back, just that you can hand out, and it doesn't, you can make this your own referral card, and maybe provide a few things, a little bit of context, or some prompts on what they could say in the referral or in the review, excuse me. So not referral cards, but review cards. That's what I meant to say. So something easy that you can hand to them. Again, you're trying to just reduce that friction to leave the review, because once they leave the office, it's hard to remember to, okay, I'm going to pull up Pineview Dental and I'm going to go try and find the listing, and then I've got to find the place where to leave a review, and then I need to do that. But if you just have one link that sends you right there, and then all you have to do is tap the stars and post, you don't even have to type anything. You just do something simple like that. It makes it so much easier for the user. And it's just one. You're going to see significantly more reviews because of that. Another way to do. There's a couple other thoughts I have with generating more reviews in general, and I think what I've seen, and I wanted to use this story. There's a number of offices that I'm working with, and one of them just ran a contest. It's just an internal contest. Technically, you're not supposed to incentivize people to leave reviews. And so that's frowned upon. But you can do so internally. Just make it a fun contest. And this was a great one. The winner who generated the most reviews during the course of the week, where their name was mentioned, they got it was a spa day for them. So it was all day experience, whatever. And it was crazy. I was just looking at this too. So this was one office, and they generated in 1 week time, any guesses? Total, collectively, they generated 88 new Google reviews in 1 week. 1 week. Pretty amazing, right? And that's just the power of kind of getting everyone together and doing a contest, right? And theirs was simple. They actually had some skin in the game too, where it was the loser had to get their nose hair waxed or something like that. So you can make it very playful. again, I want to go back to what I stated earlier. The recency is important. So you don't want to just leave it for like 1 month, or 1 week. This is something that they're going to do over several months, where they have 1 week dedicated out of the month that they're counting, but then also encouraging them to leave reviews the other weeks of the month. But just also, so if you're looking high level, they're getting quite a few reviews every month, So that's important, but just be fun with it. Make it a contest. I've also found that there's certain people that will naturally gravitate to it more than others. Some are just probably not going to ask for the reviews. They just won't be able to get over that mental hurdle. They, might feel like, that's not who I am. Whatever the case may be. You don't have to give them grief or anything, but just try and find that person. Try and uncover that one or two or three individuals in your practice that really do like that would accept that challenge and pick up that baton and run with it. That they can own the Google reviews and have them kind of drive it for the practice, where they can think up ideas of what to do for a contest or when it might be most appropriate to ask for the review, or come up with a flyer that has the QR code, for example. Those are all great things that this team member can do, and you can incentivize them too. If say, hey, this is our goal, we've been getting, you can evaluate it and say, maybe we've gotten 15 reviews month after month. That's kind of our average. If you get 25 reviews or more, or if you get 15, or maybe you just do above the average, 20 or more, then for each additional review, you get blah, 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 or whatever the case may be. I'm not going to decide that for you, obviously, but that could be another idea, another way to get them thinking and excited about it. The last thing is just make it a point of emphasis for, as a leader to your team, that this is important to you. And one way you can do that is just measuring your progress. Just print out an 11 by 17 poster, put it in the break room, and refer to it during your, maybe not every day, but you could refer to it once a week during huddle or your meetings or whatever the case may be, and just have them fill in. Where are we at? How many did we get today? How many did we get this week? Where are we at this month versus last month? Just so visually they have a reminder and can see what's going on there and can see that it's important to you. Now, going back to that example of the practice that did the contest, who totally killed it. And I think this is why they were able to generate, 88 reviews in 1 week, is because the doctor freaking ran with it. It was super important to him. He, in his practice, and I don't think he ended up with the most in his practice, but he did 32 himself, or 32 reviews that named him specifically in the review out of the 88, which is super impressive. And I think the top-down leadership, when you can show them, you lead by example as opposed to just kind of speaking at them, right? It's going to go a long way. So those are just some ideas, right? And like I mentioned, there's a lot of automation. There's a lot of tools that you can deploy to help support you in your review generation. There's, automated emails and automated texting. And if you have access to that, great. Just make sure you enable that and make it very casual too. Just say, hey, Mark, you have 30 seconds to leave a quick Google review. That would mean so much to us. And then provide the link. It's all you have to say. It doesn't need to be a long drawn out thing. It's just a simple ask to get a review. So utilize automation where you can, but I think I find the quality of the reviews are better when you can make it a more personalized approach. It is harder. I get that, but it is more worthwhile, just like most things in life, right? But Google reviews are a fantastic way to, like I mentioned, build that social proof, credibility, establish and glean a lot of information from too. That's one thing I didn't mention before, but you can start to see patterns of what people really pick out, what people choose to mention in their reviews. You're going to see that, oh man, they're super no pressure. Like they don't try and force you or sell you into this treatment. And maybe that's a recurring theme. You can tap into that, and then you can utilize those phrases that they use in your marketing efforts. And it's going to resonate even more because that's going to be congruent with so imagine you're using that messaging and a prospective patient sees that and they're like, oh man, that's cool. My last dentist was like super high pressure. Felt like I was at a used car dealership. And no offense to those guys, that a lot of them do a really good job, but they felt that sales pressure and they didn't want to feel that. And so they hear this message, they try this new practice, and lo and behold, it's exactly like they heard. And that's going to be super important for them. It's going to really resonate with them because that messaging was congruent and consistent throughout that entire process. But it's a great way to, again, glean those insights that you can then utilize in your marketing as well. So lots of great things that can come from Google reviews. One thing there are some, I'm definitely not an attorney. I'm not providing legal counsel on this, but it would not be a bad idea to talk. I would definitely recommend to talk to a HIPAA attorney if you are considering, responding and engaging to patients via Google reviews. You're not supposed to do anything that's going to identify that person as a patient. And you might say, well, Mark, they're the ones who, they publicly said that I was a patient here, can't we talk to them then? Even then, you're still not supposed to. It's weird. That's the law. I mean, that's just kind of legalese stuff that's way over my head. It doesn't make sense to me, but that's how it is that you're not supposed to do that. So there is technically a risk by doing so, by engaging. And there is a way to engage. And again, I'm not going to go into that because I'm not qualified to do that, but I should probably try and find someone to come on the show and talk to us about that. But anyway, so just be careful. That's the whole point of what I'm trying to say is be careful if you decide to engage with them, and using that personal identifier information. You want to steer clear of that. So anyway, those are some great tips to help you generate some reviews. We talked about the importance of Google reviews. Again, just start ticking off some of those things. Can you make some QR codes, put them on a flyer, put them in your office, make some cards? Can you find someone in your office that can pick up, assume that responsibility, assume ownership for your Google reviews, make a chart that you can keep track of? Those are some basics to just get started. And then just anything that you measure and report on, you're going to see improve over time, because people are going to take notice that, okay, this really is important to the doctor. This is important to us. So encourage you to do that. Let me know if you have any questions on the way. As always, thank you so much for joining. And if you wouldn't mind leaving me a review, if you've liked the podcast, you've liked this episode, I would love to receive a review on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, wherever you're listening to this. Just take a minute and give me a rating. That would be tremendous, because that also helps me show up on more searches. So that would be tremendous. But until next time, I hope you have a great week, and we will talk to you soon.